Alrighty, so today I'm actually going to freshen up the content because for the past month or so, I have been doing repetitive content with me doing news of the week, doing moving forward series, and soon I'm going to do season preview and moving forward series, and that's been kind of the cycle. And then of course you got a couple of those Sports Hub series episodes sprinkling in, but you know I need to do something fresh. And do something that is not related to that, because after all, you know, I don't want you guys to keep watching the same kind of content. That's going to make people start to unsubscribe my channel. So again, that's why I'm doing something that is unrelated to that, and I'm actually going to talk about stadium location, because this has been a thing that I'm always very fascinated, and especially a couple of days ago when I saw on a Reddit post, they put out a graph of all of the MLS stadium, and then they basically put them kind of in a quadrant of how close they're related to the downtown area. That it kind of makes me wants to do this video, and that Reddit post is kind of a huge inspiration of this video too, and talk about each of these stadium location, and also talk about approximately how close they are from downtown. Because you know, one thing I did do research after looking at that graph from that Reddit post, to me just kind of put it on Google Maps and measure how close each of these stadiums are from downtown, is that graph is kind of slightly incorrect. And I will also say that this might be incorrect too, because that's why I say here on the board approximating to downtown, because yeah, you know, downtown you can definitely call it anywhere on the map. And in a case of two stadium, I don't actually even know what the downtown area is, and you'll find out why exactly. I mentioned that in just a bit. And of course I also talk about some of the stadium locations, some of the quirks and stuff like that. And I will say that because I haven't visited every single MLS stadium, there's going to be something that I will miss, and there are going to be some stadium that I am not too familiar with. But we start off with the stadium that I am pretty much familiar with now, because I visited twice last year, and that of course is Allianz Field, which is the home of Minnesota United, the Loons, and they of course play in St. Paul, which that is kind of something that always gets people. Like I think there's even like one time I remember the broadcaster said, well, we are live from Allianz Field from Minneapolis, and no, the stadium is not in Minneapolis, it's in St. Paul. But what's interesting about it is that, you know, it's actually approximately 4 miles from downtown St. Paul, but it's also approximately the same distance from downtown Minneapolis. And I think the Loons did that on purpose, because, you know, what a way to have a symbol of the Twin City when you put your stadium right down the middle. And also the neighborhood the stadium is called Midway, which is pretty accurate because it's right between the two Twin City there, as part of the Twin City Metro. And not to mention, it's pretty easy to get there. I mean, there is a light rail that connects both of the Twin Cities, so, you know, public transportation should not be a problem. And also around the area, you know, I definitely found some good food option. I mean, there's also a big Target nearby the stadium, because of course this is Minnesota. You of course have to have a Target nearby the stadium, and also of course the team's shirt sponsor is Target after all. So overall, I do like the stadium location of where Minnesota United playing at Allianz Field, and it's not just because of the fact that I've also mentioned many times, probably in my opinion the best stadium in the league, but it's also because of the stadium location, pretty much put in a very good spot for people to go to. Then we go to the second stadium, American First Field, formerly known as Rio Tinto Stadium, and I know RSL fans will still call that place the Ride, even though they changed the name of the stadium. Now, this is also a stadium that I've been there last year. It's actually not in Salt Lake City. It's actually in a suburb called Sandy. It's about 14 miles south of where downtown Salt Lake City is. Now, I will say that this is a stadium that was kind of built in during like the era in the 2010s, where we start to have like soccer specific stadium, where they kind of put it in the suburb area, not close to downtown, and that kind of creates a little bit of a problem for people to of course go to games. And this is a good example of it, where, you know, there is a light rail that actually goes to Sandy from downtown Salt Lake City, but yeah, it's you still kind of had to walk to the stadium. It's about like a 15-minute walk, and not to mention the surrounding area. I mean, I think there's like an expo that's pretty close there, but that's pretty much it. There's not really a lot of food option and stuff like that. But hey, at least they have good views of the Washington range that is. But overall, the stadium location, again, this is just one of those stadiums that was built during that time in the mid 2000s and the 2010s when the stadium or the soccer specific stadium really started to kind of hit toward the first boom period, where they're just putting it in a suburbs and don't really thought about exactly, you know, putting in the suburbs in this soccer specific stadium sometimes isn't always the best idea. Then we go to Audi Field, which is in Washington D.C., and it's about 4 miles approximately to downtown, though again that's debatable, because if you're a D.C. resident, you can debate where exactly downtown is. I mean, I've even heard that some people say downtown is where the White House or where the Capitol Hill is. But from what I found on the map, it's 4 miles away from downtown, and it's in the neighborhood where their baseball team, National Park, is around and down near South DC, which I also heard that they have definitely cleaned up that area, and also that area has been gentrified, because I heard from DC resident that area used to be very rough and you don't want to be there at night, but because they built that new ballpark there around the mid 2000s, and then of course, you know, I'm pretty sure DC United fans are glad the fact that they finally have their own soccer specific stadium, because if this was still RFK, I mean, RFK was in an okay area, but at the same time, it is definitely not as good of an area as where Audi Field is currently at. Then we look at Bank of America Stadium at Charlotte, which again, this is one of a couple of the MLS stadium that is exactly near the downtown area. And you notice, you know, again, when I talk about the first kind of big boon, or should I just say like first generation kind of soccer specific stadium that's kind of put in the suburbs, when you look at some of these newer soccer specific stadium, or in this case and a multi-purpose stadium, they are pretty much very close to the downtown area. And in this case, Bank of America Stadium, you know, I know it's an NFL stadium, but it's still a stadium that is in a perfect location. It's one of the few NFL stadium that is actually in the downtown area, because I know there's a lot of NFL stadium that is not in the downtown area. Levi Stadium. Yeah, so overall, you know it's in a pretty good area, and I know, you know, Charlotte fans would love to have their own stadium, and there's even some rumors that maybe eventually they will build themselves a soccer specific stadium. But as of now, you know, at Bank of America Stadium, I think it's a good stadium. It's a pretty good multi-purpose stadium from what I heard from Charlotte FC fans, even if it's basically used mostly for football. Then we go to number 5, and that is BC Place, which is in Vancouver. And again, BC Place is pretty close near the downtown area. It's pretty much right next to the hockey team play, the Canucks play at Rogers Place, and that, you know, it's not that far away from downtown. There's some good option around the stadium. So yeah, overall a very good location. And then we go to one of the BMOs, because now we have 2 BMOs after there's a team that decided to name the same as the original BMO kind of name stadium, and that of course is the one in Toronto, that is BMO Field. Only 3 miles away from downtown Toronto. It's in the exploratory kind of, or not exploratory, but the exposition part of Toronto, right on Lake Ontario. And you know, I think before they did the renovation, you can actually see a very good skyline of Toronto. But unfortunately, since they redo since they done the renovation, you can't really see the skylines a little bit. But this video is all about stadium location, and overall it's a good stadium location. I mean, I think there is a metro station near the area, so you're not that far away from the downtown area. And by the way, speaking of metro and public transportation, that's another thing I will mention a lot in this video, because one of the thing that, you know, you want to have a stadium to be in a good location is that you need to have good public transportation. And as I will talk about in some of these stadium, yeah, some of these stadium really lack public transportation, and it can be a bit of a nightmare to go to. But one stadium that is not is the next BMO that I'm talking about, the newly named BMO Stadium that LAFC of course play. Now obviously I know LAFC always brag themselves as playing in the heart of Los Angeles, and it's not entirely incorrect. I mean, you know, they are playing in the city limit, unlike, you know, certain team that they always mark themselves as Carson Galaxy playing far away from the proper LA city limit. But they do play in the proper LA city limit, though they are still kind of a little bit away from actual downtown, about 3 miles away from downtown LA. And that, you know, again, talk about transportation, you know, the metro right rail or the metro rail is literally right near where the, well, it's actually not right near where the stadium is. It's kind of still a little bit of a walk. It's right where Expo Park is, and right near where the memorial, the LA Memorial Coliseum is. But still, it's in a very good area, and again, it's much better than, as I mentioned, the other LA team that of course LAFC fans have always mocked the fact that they don't actually play in LA, but they're actually playing in Carson instead. Now, moving on to number 8, we got Children Mercy Park. They play, of course, in Kansas City, Kansas, and I had to put the state name too, because I know people sometimes forget that, you know, just because the main part of Kansas City is in the Missouri side, there's also the side of the city that is actually on the Kansas side. Though I know that side, many people from Kansas City, I've heard, it's not as interesting as you would see in the Missouri side. But in terms of the stadium, it is on the Kansas side, and I think they're like the only professional team in Kansas City that is not playing the Missouri side, because I know the Royals and Chiefs, they play in the Missouri side, and they're actually like right next to each other. And the stadium is also right next to Kansas Speedway. It's about 15 miles away from downtown, and I will say that, yeah, you know, if I ever want to go to watch a Sporting KC game, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare to trying to get there with public transportation, because on the map it looks like they don't really have any good public transportation. You can only drive to there. But then again, Kansas City is also one of those U.S. city that don't have good public transportation in the first place. So I don't think Sporting KC fans would mind driving to the stadium. But just for an outsider, that could be a little bit of a problem. Now, I also have, as I mentioned, I have not been into the stadium, but I don't know if they have any good food option, especially right next to a racetrack. I don't know if they actually have some good food option or good entertainment option if you're right next to a racetrack. But overall, you know, besides the stadium facility, the stadium location definitely is not, I wouldn't say it's in a great area if you want to use public transportation, or if you're basically an outsider. Then we get to the newest MLS stadium, that is City Park, for the expansion team St. Louis City SC. So obviously when this stadium was announced, it was right down near downtown. And it's not a big surprise. Again, most of these MLS stadium that have built recently have been pretty much put back down right in downtown, and that is exactly is the case. And again, the reason why they want to do that is they want to maximize those entertainment option and food option, and not to mention it's much easier there to get to downtown compared to if you put a stadium in the suburb area. And that is exactly the case with St. Louis, and they're one of the I wouldn't say many, but definitely a lot amount of MLS stadium that has the distinct mark that they're approximately less than a mile away from downtown, or they're basically located in the downtown area. So from one good stadium location to a not so good stadium location, that is Dick's Sporting Goods Park in Commerce City, where the Colorado Rapids play. Now, don't be fooled, the fact that just because it's 10 miles away from downtown Denver, it doesn't mean it's easy to get. And I've been there once, and let me tell you, it is not easy to get to the stadium, and I can understand why Rapids fans are frustrated about getting to the stadium, even if it's not that far from downtown Denver. It's kind of right next to a Rocky Mountain conservative area, and it's also kind of like right down in the middle of nowhere with like a soccer complex. And I think the only way you can actually get there is by a bus, but you gotta have to take the commuter rail to Central Park Station and then take a bus, which I didn't do that when I went to. I just took an Uber from the Central Park station where the commuter rail is there, and yeah, it is not easy to get to that stadium, and that this is also one of the many stadium that I have heard fans have criticized where they of course put it, but it's also a lot to do with the fact that, you know, this stadium again was built during the period when they start building soccer specific stadium for MLS team. They put these stadium in the suburb area, and later they found out that was a terrible mistake. And then we talked about another stadium that is kind of like part of it, and actually this is the second soccer specific stadium that was built in the U.S. That is Dignity Health Sports Park, as they of course are in Carson. Of course, you know, I'm pretty sure everybody know that the Galaxy are playing in Carson, especially with all those memes. And they're about 16 miles away. I've been there twice, and again, you know, it's not easy to get there if you don't have a car. I mean, you can actually take I believe the way to get there is that you take like the Silver Line to like the Great Way Transit Center, and then you have to take like either a bus or I think the Galaxy does provide like an express bus to get to the stadium. But even then, I think after the game, that's where it gets a little tricky, because I don't recall when I got out of the stadium twice, I don't recall where the bus station is, or if there's any bus that actually gets back to the Harbor Transit Center. So yeah, again, getting there is definitely a nightmare. And also the location around it, again, it's kind of in the suburbs, and you know, Carson is definitely not a city you want to be going around the neighborhood at night. I mean, it's definitely not one of the safer neighborhood down in the southern part of LA. And yeah, I mean, again, the location, it definitely is not good, and it's definitely a location where you can only drive to there. And knowing the fact that LA has always been notorious for its traffic, it's no wonder why I can understand why maybe some Galaxy fans don't show up until like the 30th or 40th minute in the first half. I mean, that's kind of like a tradition in LA sports, where you don't usually show up until well past like maybe about an hour after the game starts. Then we will talk about another stadium that is kind of in a bad stadium location, and this is also a stadium that I, believe it or not, have been to. I actually been to this stadium about 2 years ago at Drive Pink Stadium, and this stadium, of course, in Fort Lauderdale. Now, it's important that, you know, Inter Miami, they're eventually going to get their new stadium down in the Freedom Park location, and that is going to be way much closer than where they're designated to be. But because of the fact that this is in Fort Lauderdale, and people forget that Fort Lauderdale is actually pretty far from Miami. It's like about 25 miles away, and this stadium is kind of like in the northern part of Fort Lauderdale, and I think it's like right next to an executive airport that they have. Yeah, it's not really in a great location, in that, you know, when I went there wasn't really much to do. And also, not to mention, in terms of public transportation, I mean, I think I heard that they do have a tri-rail station nearby, but you still have to walk about 25 minutes to get to the stadium, and that's just, again, that's a bit of a pain. And not to mention, when I went there, I basically take Uber to get there. So yeah, not a great location whatsoever, but like I said, it's just a temporary stadium. They eventually will be moving to their new home, hopefully in a couple years, whenever that stadium is going to start doing construction. I mean, they approved the deal for the stadium to be built, but as of now, I don't think I've heard anybody have said about the stadium being built. And also, hopefully, maybe that will increase the attendance or so forth, because again, you know, attendance is definitely one thing that is a factor in terms of stadium location. Well, pretty much 90% of the time. And because of the fact that Inter Miami does not have a very great attendance record, in fact, they're the worst attended team in the league. And it's not hard to understand why that is the case when you're playing like 32 miles away, and by far the furthest out of any team that is played by their designated city in the downtown area. So now we go to look at the next team, that is Exploria Stadium in Orlando. And unlike their Florida counterpart, Orlando City at least gets it right in terms of putting where Exploria Stadium is. It's right near the downtown area, right there where the Magic Arena is in Amtech Arena, and it's also about a mile away from the city. So yeah, you're definitely gonna get some good entertainment option, and definitely going to get yourself pretty easy to get there, because I think there's also like a train station that is pretty close to there too. And then we then go to another stadium that is not in a very good stadium location, and that of course is Gillette Stadium. I mean, this has always been a thing that I think a lot of people have mentioned in terms of bad stadium location, and what are some of the stadium that they always mention that is put in a bad stadium location. It's Gillette Stadium, because it's so far away from downtown Boston. It's in Foxborough, which is about 28 miles away from downtown Boston. And again, this is just another stadium that has trouble in terms of selling tickets. And even when the refs were successful, I mean, you know, especially in the midweek kind of game, oh boy, the stadium can be very, very empty, even if the refs are doing well. And again, that's been the reason why that a lot of Revs fans have been pleading for the Kraft family to eventually get the stadium deal done, because let's face it, you know, New England unfortunately are still kind of part of that MLS 1.0 era in terms of stadium, where you're still playing in an NFL stadium that is kind of not the best in terms of hosting soccer, and also not to mention it's just so far away from the downtown Boston area. Now, we go to number 15 and go to one of the newest MLS stadium. In fact, this stadium was just built last year. That is Geodis Park in Nashville. It's near the Nashville Fairgrounds, about 4 miles away from the city. Now, I don't know if they actually have the decent public transportation there to get to the Nashville Fairgrounds, but from what I heard, it seems like it's in a pretty good location. It's not far away from the downtown area. But again, you know, I'm never been there before, and that if I wanted to go there, I want to see how am I going to, of course, get there. Hopefully, they will have some good public transportation that can actually get there. But meanwhile, talking about another stadium that is relatively new, and that, of course, is Lower.com Field, that is in Columbus. Of course, the Columbus Crew used to play in the first ever soccer-specific stadium, that is Montpreet Field. But obviously, Montpreet Field, or Montpreet Stadium, actually, to the exact name, is kind of far away from downtown Columbus. But with Lower.com Field, it's much closer to Columbus, and I think this is the right call with the way that, again, you know, a lot of these teams, they know that when they build these soccer-specific stadium, and I won't be surprised, there's going to be some teams that might start, like 20 years down the line, might be building another stadium because their soccer-specific stadium they're playing in start to age a little bit, and especially with these brand new kind of spanking stadium, I can understand why there are some teams that maybe built their stadium during the mid-2000s and the early 2010s that wants to build a new stadium much closer to downtown, and I think Columbus is a great example of it. I mean, it's nothing wrong with Montpreet, or now called the Historic Crew Stadium, but it was kind of far away, and it's kind of hard to get to, whereas Lower.com Field, it's smack down right near downtown. It's a pretty easy way to get to the stadium. Then we get to the next stadium, that is Lumen Field, and again, this is another stadium that is pretty much in a good spot in Seattle. It's right near where the industrial part of the city, but don't let that fool you, the fact that it's actually not that far from the downtown area. In fact, the last time when I went to Lumen's Field last year to watch the Sounders take on Nashville, I actually didn't take the light rail to get there, which you can also take the light rail to get there. There's a light rail station nearby, but I actually walked from downtown all the way to the stadium. It's actually not that far away. It's only like a 20-minute walk. So yeah, you know, it's in a very good location, and that, not to mention, also great public transportation to get to the stadium too. Speaking of downtown stadium, we got another one that Atlanta United playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So not only the fact that Mercedes-Benz Stadium is always labeled as one of the best stadium here in the country, but just because of the fact that it's kind of smack down near downtown Atlanta, gives another good option of why a lot of people like where the stadium is, and that, you know, after the game they can always go to downtown to get some food or get some entertainment and so forth. And yeah, overall, Mercedes-Benz Stadium is in a perfect stadium location. Then we go to the stadium that I've been to the most because it's basically my local stadium, PayPal Park in San Jose, where the Quakes, of course, play. Now, you know, the thing about PayPal Park is that it's, I mean, I don't want to say it's kind of far away from downtown San Jose, but it is definitely a little bit away from it. It's actually right next to San Jose Mineta Airport, and they actually do provide like a shuttle from downtown San Jose to get to the stadium. And in terms of the location itself, again, you know, the problem with it being right next to the airport is that, you know, I've heard how they're not supposed to put pyrotechnics and not supposed to lit up fair because the fire marshal of the city might be worried that it might cause a direct distraction toward flights that is coming in, and not to mention the flight path where PayPal Park is kind of in the way. I mean, I can even see planes landing every time when I'm at the game, which is kind of a surreal scene. Like I don't think there is a stadium, not just in MLS, but really a stadium here in the US where you can literally watch a game while watching plane lands. Like that I've always mentioned, that's, if you're kind of a plane spotter, that is a dream place to be to watch a sports game and also watch planes lands. But again, in terms of the stadium location itself, I mean, again, there's really not much entertainment option. I mean, they are starting to build up the area a little bit, but on one part it's just mostly tech kind of stuff. I think Yahoo is moving some of the buildings near the stadium too. But then on the right side, I mean, you do have a couple of food options. I mean, there is an In-N-Out nearby, and that usually always draw a lot of crowds. So I guess that's okay. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a strip mall too, right? Near if you go toward the area where you're going to the downtown area. But again, you know, even though it's not really in downtown, it's close enough where again, in terms of public transportation, there's a bus that goes there. You can also take the Caltrain to go to Santa Clara and then walk to the stadium, which is about 15 minutes away. Overall, it's not a bad stadium location, but it's definitely not one of the best in my opinion. But moving on, we got Providence Park, which is in Portland, and again, the stadium is pretty close to downtown. I mean, it's not really smack down near downtown. It's maybe a little bit north of it, but it's still in walking distance where you can get to the stadium easily, and there's also plenty of bars around that stadium too. So yeah, overall an excellent place where it is, and also good public transportation is. I mean, you can even see the light rail in the background when you of course watch some of those Timbers game, especially on TV. That just shows you it's pretty close to where the light rail station is. Then we get to also one of the newer stadium, that is Q2 Stadium. Now, Q2 Stadium, this is an interesting one where, you know, I talk about how a lot of these newer soccer-specific stadium are kind of put near the downtown area. Well, Austin decided not to do that. Even though the stadium is still in Austin proper, it's kind of not really. I mean, it's kind of in a place called McCalla Place, and it's about 10 miles away from Austin, so it's kind of far away to get there. Though they do have like a commuter rail that actually gets there, and they're actually planning to build a station that purposely have the commuter rail to stop there, so fans don't have to kind of go to, I believe it's called the McCalla station, to walk to the stadium, which I think it's, from what I heard people say, it takes up about 20 minutes to do so. So yeah, again, it's kind of a little bit unorthodox that they decide not to build it near the downtown area. Again, I think the only other stadium I can think of that doesn't follow the trend of these newer soccer specific stadium put near in the downtown area is Allianz Field. But like what I said in the beginning of the video about Allianz Field, they specifically put it there because of the fact that they want both the people from Minneapolis and St. Paul have a much equal way to get to the stadium. But that's kind of not the case with Austin, and again, it's always wonder why they didn't build it more closer into the downtown area instead of just kind of build near a little bit in the suburb area even though it's not. It kind of isn't because it's still Austin City proper. Then we go to number 22, that is Red Bull Arena. So obviously Red Bull Arena, the stadium location, another one of those ones that is not really in an ideal location. I mean, Harrison, New Jersey is definitely not one area that I think a lot of people want to hang out at night, especially the fact that it's also near a very industrial area too. Now, you notice I put unknown in terms of approximate to downtown because let's face it, it's hard to predict where New York City downtown is. And I'm also going to safe to say that in my last stadium I'm going to talk about, which is Yankee Stadium where NYCFC play, that's also where I can't say approximately where the downtown area is because, you can't tell me where exactly the downtown area is in New York City. It really kind of depends. Like some people say it's the financial district, some people say it's Midtown, some people say it's like in the lower Manhattan area. There's really not a location. Now, if I would have gone with Newark, they are playing pretty close near the Newark area, but I can't put that there because they're called the New York Red Bulls. They're not the New Jersey Red Bull, even though I know some fans have said that they should be called that because, they're actually playing in New Jersey instead of playing in New York. But again, it's the stadium location. I mean, the good news is that there is actually a PAF station near the stadium, but again, it's just in an area where it's relatively rough. There's not really any entertainment option whatsoever, and that again, and even I heard some people say that even though it's near like the PAF train area, you still kind of have to walk a little bit to get to the stadium, and again, you don't want to walk at nighttime in Harrison, New Jersey, or in the area near Newark too, because there's definitely a lot of crimes that does happen around that, especially at nighttime. And then we got Stade Saputo that is in Montreal, which is actually about 4 miles away from Montreal. It's about north of the downtown area, and also part of the Olympic Park where you have the Olympic Stadium there too. Again, it's a stadium that is in a decent location too. I mean, there is a subway station near there, or not a subway station, but a metro station near there, and that other than that, I mean, it's also near the Olympic Park area, so you're going to maybe get some good food option, because if I remember last time when I went to Montreal, not to go to a game, but just kind of visit there, there really wasn't a lot of food option in the Olympic Park area. So I guess, maybe if you were looking for entertainment and food option outside the stadium, might not be the best idea. But in terms of the stadium location and getting there, it's relatively easy because the fact that there is a subway station or a metro station that actually gets from there to the downtown area. Speaking of downtown area, we got Shell Energy Stadium, of course, formerly known as PNC Field or BBVA Compass Stadium, as some Houston Dynamo fans will always remember. It's right down in the downtown area, and again, for many times before, this has always been a stadium that a lot of people have always wondered why exactly they still have trouble in terms of filling the seats when they're in the downtown area. In fact, I think they're kind of like the only teams that I can say that is the case. I mean, I guess it's partially because the Dynamo hasn't been very good for the past couple of years, and again, winning does fill in those stadium. But even when there was time where they were winning games, they were still having trouble in terms of filling that seat. So again, it's kind of odd. I guess maybe it's because of the weather, because it is hot there, but there is some roofing at that stadium too. So again, it's a weird one. I don't know if anyone will ever find out why that for a stadium that is in a very good location right near downtown Houston, people just don't want to go to the stadium. Then we get to number 25, that is Soldier Field in Chicago, which is about a mile away from it. Again, that's approximate because downtown Chicago is in a big area, and it's hard to label where exactly it is. But I'm pretty sure, as much as I know, it is kind of a little bit of a stadium that's kind of like an MLS 1.0 stadium, where the Fire are always play in a stadium that is way too big and just kind of look very, very kind of soulless. At least for Fire fans, they're much more happier to be able to to watch their team near the downtown area compared to their previous stadium, that is SeatGeek Stadium, that is in Bridgeville. Even though actually they technically still do play some games there too, but yeah, I can say that there's a reason why they moved back to Soldier Field, because Bridgeville Stadium was, or not Bridgeville, but SeatGeek Stadium near Bridgeville was just way too far away from Chicago. The public transportation there was pretty much non-existent. You had to drive there to get to the stadium, and people just weren't able to do so. And especially with the way that the fire was very, very bad for many years, nobody really went to games at SeatGeek Stadium in Bridgeville, compared to doing times where, yes, there's a time where the Fires does still suffer some attendance problem, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the team is not doing good. If the teams is doing good and the weather is pretty good, you can definitely see there's going to be a lot more fans show up at games compared to during their time when they were at SeatGeek Stadium in Bridgeville. Then you got Subaru Park, where the Union, of course, play. And again, you know, they actually play in the suburbs in Chester, about 18 miles away. And again, the stadium location here, I mean, it is right next to the Delaware River, which will kind of give the bonus in terms of the scenery-wise. And then you also get the Commodore Bridge view right down near the river end of the stadium. But besides that, that's kind of really the only good things that this stadium has in terms of stadium location. I mean, it's pretty far away from downtown Philadelphia. It's about 18 miles away. Chester is definitely not a place that you want to be at nighttime. It's one of the more dangerous area in the Philly suburbs. And again, not to mention, it's pretty far away to the stadium. I think there is actually a SEPTA station nearby, but then you also have to kind of walk through the downtown Chester area. And again, Chester is one of those dangerous area, kind of very run down, and that I'm pretty sure a lot of Union fans tend to drive to the stadium rather than take public transportation. And then we go to number 27. That is Toyota Stadium in Frisco, where FC Dallas has played. And again, this is another stadium that has always been on the infamous list in terms of the stadium that has the worst stadium location in MLS. I mean, Frisco is just so far away from downtown Dallas. It's like 28 miles north of the city. It's way out there in the suburbs. And while the maybe some of the suburb people living in the Frisco area that might support FC Dallas would love where the stadium location is, yeah, it's definitely a nightmare stadium location, where this is another one of those ones where you cannot get there without driving. I mean, there's really no good public transportation whatsoever that is near there. And also around the stadium, I mean, the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame that they put there a couple years ago have definitely made the place a little bit more lively, but I really think this is just almost a direct carbon copy of what I'll say about the Colorado Rapids playing in Commerce City at the Sporting Goods Park. It's a stadium that is kind of way out there in the middle of nowhere with a lot of soccer complex, and it's kind of the same case too for Dallas. A lot of soccer complex around the stadium. It's kind of just a little bit soulless in some ways. And that also, I won't be surprised, this is also another stadium that I mentioned before, how maybe 20 years down the line there might be some teams that are thinking about building a new stadium because their soccer specific stadium has started to age a little bit. It's the same case for Toyota Stadium. It is definitely started to age a little bit, even if it's now only, I think it's close to about 15 or 20 years now. But just looking at the structure of it, it's definitely aged a little bit, even with the recent renovation that they had with the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame being there. And then we go to Cincinnati, where FC Cincinnati play at TKO Stadium. And again, one of the good thing about TKO Stadium and why many people have said it's considered to be the best stadium in MLS is not just because of the look of the stadium, but it's also where it's based in. It's pretty close to downtown Cincinnati. It's in the West End neighborhood, which is like right next to where downtown Cincinnati is. And again, overall, very good area to get to there. And even though Cincinnati doesn't have a lot of good public transportation, I believe they have plenty of buses that actually gets there. And also, you can just walk from downtown to get to the stadium because it is just very close to where it is. And then finally, at number 29, we got Yankee Stadium at the Bronx. And again, put unknown there because I'll basically say the same thing I said about where the Red Bulls play at Red Bull Arena. I just don't know exactly what you classify as downtown in New York City. And also, I know there's also some people might want me to say I should put like Citi Field, or even in extreme cases Bank of California Stadium, or even East Hartford, because of how NYCFC have played in those stadiums before as their home ground. I'm just gonna put Yankee Stadium for now, and I'll probably maybe even put Citi Field too, which is kind of like in the Queens area. And again, you know, if you want to talk about Manhattan being kind of the main downtown, it's still kind of tough to say, because Manhattan, even though it might be a small place, there's a lot of area you can say that it's kind of you might even consider it is downtown in New York City. And then, quite frankly, I don't even know there is actually a downtown in New York City. I think Manhattan will always just be labeled as a downtown, but it's not a downtown. It's just one of the 5 boroughs in New York City. So yeah, again, I can't really tell you how it is. I mean, the only good thing about Yankee Stadium is the fact that, you know, it's pretty easy to get there. It's so much easier to get there compared to Red Bull Arena, from what I heard from New Yorkers, because Yankee Stadium is like, there's a couple of subways line that actually gets to there, and that, you know, it's also an area where there's plenty of entertainment and food option, mainly because the other team that plays here, which is what the stadium is named after, it provides a lot of those kind of entertainment and food option around the area. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of me looking at all the stadium location and kind of giving my opinions about, and also kind of talk about approximately how far they're away from downtown. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and let me know in the comments below, what do you think, or which stadium do you think has the best stadium location out of these 29 MLS stadiums so far in MLS. And again, I'll probably maybe do another video like this, or a follow-up video, once I do visit every single stadium, because as of now, I've been to here, I've been to here, I've been to here, I've been to pretty much about 1/3 of the stadium. But as I go to hopefully one day actually visit every single stadium in MLS, I can maybe give my thoughts on every single stadium in terms of stadium location, the entertainment, and itself, because it's very fascinating to see it. I mean, one of the things about a stadium is that you want to have it in a very great location, because if you don't have it in a great location, yeah, attendance and also people complaining of getting to the stadium to watch their favorite team play is going to really be a thing that will be serviced many times over. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.